Rocket Racing has problems. This mode has been out for about a month and a half, which is enough time to get rid of any recency bias, allowing for some honest takes. Now the structure of this review will consist of the pros, the mid-ground, which is like stuff that is good but could use some tweaking, and the cons, which is just please fix or get rid of. Starting with the pros, the general mechanics of the mode are solid. Yes, they need some changes, but the overall idea is really fun. Being able to drift around with little to no handling needed is so cool, and just makes casual racing that much better. The boosting is fun, I don't really have anything to say about that. And finally, the air jumping, air dodging, that thing. It's decent, and like I said before, the whole idea is cool, but it definitely needs some work. More on that later. Together, these mechanics are nothing without being able to use them efficiently at a basic and pro level, and I'm glad to say that you can. And that pretty much sums up the pros. Now, there isn't much in here, but don't let that fool you into thinking that I dislike or hate everything else about the mode. It's just nothing else really caught my eye to put on this list. The first thing in the medium category is only really being held back by one thing, and that's the cars. Now, I could sit here and complain about the pricing, but that's not the point of the video. The cars in this mode are great, and I'm happy they released 4 or 5 on launch. However, these cars are lacking in customization. When you buy a car through the item shop, you get 3 or 4 decals, but you can only use them with that car, and some of them barely make a difference. I think you understand the solution here. Just allow us to use the other decals on other cars. I don't think it would be that hard to just transfer them over. The next topic is also borderline pros, but there are a few things that need improvement. The maps. Now, some of these maps are awesome, visual-wise and gameplay-wise. I mean, this is just the best map because of how cool it looks, although there are definitely some lacking in variety. I mean, half of them are just a desert. Fortnite has so many cool POIs and props to pull from to make a truly stunning track, so why don't they? Yeah, I know this is because they're adding a creative mode where you can make your own map, but with the example of Creative 2.0, I think we all know that Epic will just do it better. Also, I was excited for Skibidi Toilet Racing. Anyways, another thing is map progression. If you've played for a bit and gotten to a higher rank, you'll have noticed that over time, these maps become more complicated and harder to traverse. This on paper sounds good, but I find it really annoying when you get used to a map and know all the shortcuts to now feeling like you have no idea what you're doing. Now you might just say, oh well, that's a sign of progression, which may be the truth, but I found that I tried doing things I usually do on that map out of muscle memory to end up in 10. I'd just say make a new map entirely, but apparently this mode is taking up Rocket League devs, and that community is not too happy, so it might not be the best idea. Then again, this whole rant could just be a mad cause bad situation. Cons. Speaking of mad cause bad, the first on the list is hazard zones, which at the time of recording this are way too punishing. Now a lot of you might disagree, but I'm guessing that you haven't experienced most of the expert maps. Hitting one of the hazard zones slows you down by at least 200 miles per hour and doesn't allow you to drift for 2 or 3 seconds. This is really annoying when you consider that even a single touch from another car can screw you out of first place. Not to mention they put a good 700 of them on everything that isn't the exact path. Again, maybe it's just mad cause bad, but please either nerf the punishing or decrease the amount of them on each map. One thing I want to throw in here isn't really a con, but I definitely think it deserves a mention. There's no real punishment for leaving a ranked match. If you're in 10th and know you're not coming back, you can just leave the game and you won't lose anything but your time. Me personally, I'm not complaining, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Speaking of ranked, the ranked system needs to be reworked. I've been playing this mode a lot recently. My past videos, I think I've made that clear. However, I'm only like Plat 3, and it's not like I've been coming 5th or 6th. I've been coming 1st and 2nd place and getting like 5%. I don't know the reasoning behind this. Maybe it's for the gameplay loop, but if you're that dedicated, I think you just play the mode because you like it. Or the other reason might be because you can get 20 games in like an hour. But as someone with a life, it takes me like a day and a half to rank up from platinum. All I'm saying is make it easier to rank up. I mean, who is it really harming? Speaking of harming, I felt like harming my keyboard after this next topic. Player collision. I found it really hard to defend this in any sort of way, mostly because of my bad experiences with it. So if you have any good arguments that isn't just mad cause bad, I'll be happy to respond. Anyways, they should remove player collision. I've had countless experiences where I'm going for a boost pad and some guy bumps me, which leads me to smash my windshield into a rock. And it's not just with boosting. Collision can ruin your drift and about any other move you're trying to do. It's the easiest time to be in first because you don't really have to worry about somebody crashing into you and ruining your groove. In first, there's no one to really stop you from hitting the perfect drift or making the best shortcut. Sure, you're gonna be contested, but I find it pretty difficult to lose the lead once you have it. That pretty much concludes the cons, so here's something I wanted to say. keyboard and mouse versus controller. I started on keyboard and didn't really have any issues until I started reaching diamond territory. On some of those maps, you need to make really tight turns back to back, and it's just borderline impossible on keyboard. However, you can do just that on controller. I mean, I even switched to controller after getting fed up with keyboard and mouse, and I can confirm it's a lot easier once you get the hang of it. Although if there's any Unreal players that use keyboard and mouse for Rocket Racing, I'd love to see how you do it, because I just can't figure it out. So for pro play, definitely use controller, but for more casual racing, both are fine. Finally, I've heard a lot of complaining from the community about the new modes and how they either hate them or think they're boring. And it seems like they haven't really given it a chance. It's only really been the first month, and we haven't even gotten the first update for any of them. With that being said, you're probably watching this as the update drops, so maybe everything I'm saying is pointless. I feel like people have just forgotten the reason why these modes were added, so I'm gonna use this restaurant idea I came up with to show you what I mean. Okay, so you're going to this restaurant. This restaurant has a really good steak, okay? This steak is like a national sensation. Everybody loves this steak. It's like the perfect steak, you know, the best steak in the world. But again, it's still a steak, and the restaurant right now is only selling the steak. So over time, the restaurant is adding different spices and sauces to change up the steak. But at the end of the day, it's still a steak. So they introduce a thing where you can make your own steak, add your own spices, add your own sauces, and make it truly yours. But at the end of the day, it's still a steak. So what does the restaurant do? Well, they're trying to get new customers. So they come up with a few new menu items. You have the chicken fingers and fries, the ice cream, and the pizza. This, as they predicted, attracts a lot more customers that wouldn't have come to the restaurant if it was just a steak. Now obviously, the majority of the customers will still prefer the steak. I mean, that's what they came to the restaurant for. Sure, some might prefer the new things, but at the end of the day, most of the customers will pick the steak. I mean, it can all coexist in one space. And if you don't like any of the foods at all, why are you at the restaurant? Just like go to McDonald's or something. And to review Rocket Racing, it's a 7 out of 10. This is by far my favorite mode, and I know I did a lot of complaining, but that's because I want it to be the best it can possibly be. Like it's